This is Wyoming, a state that looks as neat as a rectangle right in the heart of America, bordered by Montana, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho. From a distance, it seems simple, maybe even so modest that it could be overlooked on a map. While big cities compete with bright lights and a fast-paced lifestyle, Wyoming quietly sparks curiosity, like it's keeping a secret that only those who truly care will take the time to uncover. Even though the state covers 253,335 square kilometers, its population is just 587,618. That means the population density is only about 2 people per square kilometer, ranking just above Alaska in terms of sparsity across all U.S. states. So what are the reasons that make this place so empty, and why does hardly anyone want to live here? Harsh terrain and climate. The reason Wyoming has such a small population really comes down to a mix of factors: geography, climate, and even economic and historical influences. First off, most of the state is made up of high plains, but not the flat kind. It's broken up by a bunch of massive mountain ranges that stretch north to south. This creates a landscape full of steep peaks, deep valleys, and rough terrain. Not exactly ideal for building cities or settling down like in other places. Even though it sits at elevations ranging from 925 to 4,207 meters above sea level, the climate is classified as semi-arid, which means summers can get blazing hot, up to 38 degrees Celsius, while winters are brutally cold with heavy snow, and temperatures that can drop to minus 39. The weather here is tough, unpredictable, and just plain uncomfortable for everyday life, especially when you're trying to drive across the plains during a snowstorm. Annual rainfall averages around 391 millimeters, way too little to support large-scale farming. In other words, there's plenty of land, but it's hard to grow crops or raise animals sustainably. So it's no surprise that not many people choose Wyoming as a place to settle down for the long haul. Lack of basic infrastructure. In Wyoming, infrastructure and transportation still feel like a luxury compared to more developed states like California or New York. In the rural areas here, you might have to drive for hours just to get to a big supermarket, a hospital, an entertainment center, or even just a cafe. Some shops even close as early as 6 p.m. High-speed internet in rural Wyoming isn't exactly common either. Around 22% of people still don't have access to internet that meets the FCC's standards, and less than 17% of the population is connected via fiber optic. On top of that, internet here is the most expensive in the country, averaging about $7.84 per megabit per second, while in places like Rhode Island, it's only around 63 cents per megabit per second. As for transportation, the state relies heavily on roads. There are over 43,450 kilometers of rural roads, and about 6.5% of bridges and highways are rated as being in poor condition. Combine that with how far apart towns are, and it makes getting around, shipping things, or even accessing basic services pretty difficult, especially in winter when snow piles up and the state doesn't have enough resources for proper cleanup. Commercial airports? Most of them are small, and there are only 8 in total with limited domestic flights. So if residents or businesses want to connect internationally, they pretty much have to depend on larger hubs outside the state, like Denver International Airport in Colorado, which adds hassle and extra cost. Dependent economy and lack of jobs. Wyoming is one of the least populated states in the U.S., and its growth has been pretty slow. Unlike its neighbor Colorado, which once boomed during the gold rush, and now has nearly 10 times the population, Wyoming never had that kind of historical boost. During World War II and the Cold War, the federal government didn't choose Wyoming for major military or industrial investment, so the state missed out on key infrastructure and job development. Since then, the state's economy has heavily relied on energy, coal, oil, and natural gas, industries that tend to boom and bust. When the market's doing well, there might be a small rise in population as jobs open up. But when prices drop or environmental regulations tighten, the whole industry takes a hit, leading to job losses, people leaving, and a population that keeps shifting, never really stable. Meanwhile, there's almost no presence of high-tech or modern service industries. About 48% of the land in Wyoming is federally owned, and massive private ranches cover much of the rest, which limits urban development. There's also no truly big city here. The most populated city is Cheyenne, with only around 65,114 people, which isn't enough to create a strong, dynamic job market. Even though Wyoming has no state income tax and the cost of living is lower than the national average, those perks don't really make up for the state's geographic isolation, harsh climate, and lack of career opportunities. On top of that, the low and spread-out population makes it hard to grow job-heavy industries like tech, manufacturing, or large-scale services. Education and vocational training haven't quite kept up either, which makes it hard for workers to adapt. This hits young people especially hard, leading to a brain drain that makes it even tougher for Wyoming to rebuild its economy and create long-term jobs. Threats from wild nature. Even though nature is a big part of Wyoming's identity, it also brings a fair share of challenges for the people living here. Being close to places like Yellowstone National Park means you're constantly at risk of running into wildlife, from grizzly bears and gray wolves to moose and bison. These animals can show up out of nowhere, near neighborhoods or right in the middle of the road, posing real danger to both pedestrians and drivers. But it doesn't stop there. Wyoming also has to deal with extreme weather. In the summer, dry conditions and strong winds make wildfires pretty common, sometimes forcing entire communities to evacuate. Then in the winter, it's the opposite. Heavy snowstorms can shut down roads and bring transportation to a standstill for days. These harsh climate conditions seriously affect daily life, from accessing healthcare and education to keeping local supply chains running. With limited infrastructure and weather that's getting harder to predict, the threats from wild nature have become a real obstacle to sustainable growth in Wyoming, both for the economy and for everyday community life. So, to sum it up, Wyoming isn't necessarily a bad place to live. In fact, for some people, it's kind of a dream. With fresh air, stunning nature, a slower pace of life, and a nice escape from the stress of big cities. But for many others, those perks just don't make up for the ongoing challenges, like the harsh climate, limited infrastructure, a not-so-diverse economy, and the feeling of isolation or lack of community connection. What about you? Could you see yourself living in a place like Wyoming? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel to support me. See you in the next video.